A very good morning to all of you. This is day 2 of the national webinar being organized by the Department of Library and Information Science on research ethical practices. Yesterday in the inauguration, the Vice Chancellor of the university had called for maintaining ethical practices, and the initial speakers also spoke on research philosophy and research ethics in general. Now, I have been asked to talk to you all on a very relevant topic, that is ethics in science research. Ethics in science research is an apt topic, is an interesting topic, because there are two disciplines merged together. One is the ethics itself and the second one is the science. The third point is the one that is combining them is the research point of view. So, it is an interesting one and mostly neglected, though there were values and all that earlier. I will be throwing some light on this topic with you and share my views. As a topic, it is not at all an old one. It is as old as a civilization, because as the civilization started, the values, the ethical practices were also introduced one by one, though roughly, not in the sophisticated manner the way we have now, not like that. They were introduced, those practices were there, some values were there, some inculcation, some kind of because that is the reason the civilization was totally different. Civilization era of civilization was different from the earlier period, because these were being introduced and man became more sophisticated and he started thinking and he started giving some guidelines or principles of living together in a very peaceful way. We can find references about research in science ethics, in science research in epics. If we take the example of all the Vedas, 4 Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda and Atharva Veda, all 4 Vedas have clearly say some of the ethics, they put forth some of the ethics or some of the values or some of the principles of life, whether it is economics or social life or social custom or science in general or natural science or investigation into the nature or investigation of the soul. So, whatever you take, whatever you speak of, all 4 Vedas, they have highlighted through the hymns, through their hymns, they have highlighted some kind of values, some kind of principles, particularly the 4th one, the Atharva Veda. Atharva Veda particularly deals with the medical sciences, and it is almost recognized as Ayurveda, the medicinal part of it. So, it discusses different practices of medicines, different how a doctor should be, how a practitioner should be and how he should treat the patient, what kind of medicines he has to prescribe, and all those things have been thoroughly discussed in those Vedas. If we come back little later in the 2 epics that we are most familiar with, the first one being the Ramayana and the second one being the Mahabharata. Ramayana, there is a fight between Rama and Ravana, and a stage is reached when Indrajit kills Lakshmana. Indrajit has, he sends an arrow and Lakshmana he just faints. Doctors put in several efforts, but the Vaidyas, the so called Vaidyas, they put in several efforts, they could not find, and they say that it is only the Sanjeevani which can help Lakshmana to revive. At that time Lord Anjaneya flew and he goes to the mountain Sanjeevani and he finds the particular herb. He was unable to trace it, and what he does, we know, he lifts the entire mountain to the doctor itself and asks the doctor, asks the Vaidya to see what kind of herb that the doctor is in need of, and after the usage of that Sanjeevani, what Anjaneya does is a most ethical part where the science research begins. It is a best lesson for all those. We must remember that Lord Anjaneya replaces the Sanjeevani Parvata back to its place, and in one of the shlokas it is referred as Chedanka Pragiva Bhut Kapivara Vapusha Ste Namah Kaushalaya. Chedanka Pragiva Bhut. That means whatever, where it was there, exactly at that place, that entire mountain was replaced. It is for the next use. There might be some other patients, they may require this Sanjeevani, and this is what I feel that one of the best quotes, one of the best examples for our existing generation, that this is one ethical practice we must follow. After the use, it needs to be replaced for the next fair use. There is one more incident that we can find in Mahabharata, where this kind of an ethics, this kind of a principle is violated by Ashwatthama in the war. It is an 18-day war. The war completes. When the war completes, Ashwatthama, friend of Duryodhana, he was very angry, very angry. Basically, he is a man of anger. He is a man of anger. Couldn't sustain the angriness, and he uses the utmost astra called Brahmastra. There is no worry, there is no wrong in using Brahmastra, but only fault that he did, the only fault that he committed was he wasn't knowing how to end the Brahmastra cycle. He was not knowing how to end the Brahmastra cycle, which is against the principle of military science. You do not know how to end that. When you do not know, you cannot use it. That's the reason why in the present contemporary society, many people are arguing for not using the atomic energy for other things, hydraulic energy for other purposes, but he uses that. When he uses Brahmastra without knowing how to complete the cycle, finally it was Arjuna who dissolves that astra. This is where the violation started. This is an example of a violation of a science research. Later on, there are many people who had come across two great doctors, we have authors we have seen. One is Charaka and another one is Sushrusha. Charaka had written Charaka Samhita. There are 8 books. Book 3, Vimanasthana, is completely dedicated to the medical sciences, medical ethics, how the practitioner, the doctor, Vaidya should perform his duties, how a patient should react, what kind of treatment to be given. It is a complete verse, completely detailed chapter, detailed one. That entire book is dedicated to that particular purpose. Sushrusha also had come out with a similar kind of treatise, Sushruta Samhita. One particular chapter, chapter 1, is completely dedicated to Sutrasthana, where these ethics were completely discussed. Ethics were completely described, they were narrated, and they were the guiding principles then. If we look at the European culture, European philosophy of thought, the trio, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, they have proposed different kinds of value systems in conducting investigations, not only medical sciences, some kind of investigations, not only natural sciences, some moral theology, others, everything. They have given certain principles, they have put forth certain value systems in conducting investigations, particularly in empirical philosophy. When you are conducting your research in empirical philosophy, they have given some narrative examples of what kind of philosophies to be applied, what kind of values to be adopted in conducting such investigations. Same way, Charles Bacon, Charles Ampere, Kuhn, Spencer, Comte and other great philosophers also have put forth their own ideas, their own principles, their own ethical principles of conducting research. It need not necessarily be science, it includes everything. What kind of principles need to be adopted, how a researcher should act, what are his responsibilities, how he should function, all those things, some kind of values they have put forth. If we come to the 12th century, to the state of Karnataka, it was Lord Basaveshwara who had given a one-liner mantra, Kayakave Kailasa, work is worship. This itself connotes beautiful ideas, beautiful principles, value systems. Kayakave, work is worship, Kailasa. That means in order to achieve Kailasa, your work should be free from all should be free from all faults. You should work, you should work it without purpose, you should do it without anything, expecting anything. Kayakave Kailasa. What a beautiful stanza is there. That is what Lord Basaveshwara has given to us, and that is enough. That is one liner principle which can motivate any investigator. It need not necessarily be a science investigator. Now slowly the time passes, and it is the time of Renaissance, particularly in the United States and Europe. During this period, many discoveries have taken place. But this Renaissance period is of significance because it has given some kind of value, some kind of importance to the values. Some importance was given to the values. The Renaissance period has seen many investigators like Filippo Brunelleschi, Galileo, Descartes, Copernicus and many more. These are few examples that I have chosen, some of the exemplaries that I have chosen from mathematics, astrophysics, astronomy and all that. They have worked out, and in the Renaissance period their concentration was basically on the sun and the other planets, plus the mathematics, the astrology and astronomy and all those things where they played a major role, plus physics and some kind of chemistry was also given importance. These discoverers, these Filippo Brunelleschi, Galileo and others, many more, they also have proposed many value systems. They themselves were examples. How to conduct research, how to come out with results, how to propose it, and what happens when people are not believing that kind of a value, what will happen to a researcher? What will happen to a researcher? That also took place with Copernicus. Period of Renaissance is also important because during this period only universitats were established in the Europe. Now we call them by the name universities. It was in the universities where the scholastic system of education took place, both liberal arts, science, moral philosophy, moral theology and all other things. where concentration was given, where that was the place where students used to go and learn. In that way, universities became the centers of learning of ethics, and ethics was also taught as one of the courses in the universities in Europe in the 15th century. This is where our real science ethics started being taught in the universities. Then the major incident that took place in the whole of the world, particularly in the European part, and later the US and other things were naturally got affected by this, was the Industrial Revolution, the era of Industrial Revolution. Basically the first Industrial Revolution, we normally call it as Industrial Revolution only, and it was followed by second Industrial Revolution in Britain. Now first Industrial Revolution took place somewhere between 1760 to 1820 up to 1840. That's the period where they say between 1820 to 1840, that was the period where in 1760 to this period, almost 60 to 80 years of period. This was the Industrial Revolution which took place in the Europe basically. This brought completely a new transition to new mechanical processing in place of manual processing. The manual process was slowly changed, slowly replaced with the mechanical processing. Major industries that were affected or affected were the textile industry, followed by the pharmaceutical industry. These two industries were the major ones, though there were skilled and semi-skilled and unskilled laborers were used heavily because of the transformation. Since this was a major development, naturally the concept of ethics came into picture, because here entered the business. It really marks a major turning point in the history of science research. This is a real marked era where people really started thinking of some kind of ethical values to be practiced. This is really a time where everything got changed. It is the beginning point, it is a major turning point in the history of research. That is what I could view. Later on, the second Industrial Revolution took place from 1850, and it was there until the end of 19th century, that is 1899 or maybe 1901, something like that. The second revolution the major countries that were affected were Britain, followed by France and other countries, but it was basically Britain where all sorts of improvements took place, all sorts of technologies were invented, and they were the kings. They ruled this era. They ruled the second revolution: chemicals, petroleum, automobile industry, electricity, power generation. So these were the aspects which covered, and which were, all sorts of industries came into picture. When all sorts of industries came into picture, competition in the market emerged. The concept of market came into picture, and that made necessary for the transfer of knowledge. Till then, nobody was talking about transfer of knowledge. It was in the second revolution period only, between this period, people started talking about transfer of knowledge, transferring the technology, transferring the philosophy from expert to the laggard. Something, that kind of a cycle started, and this is the era. And here there were scientists who actually framed certain rules of maintaining some kind of discipline. Scientific publications started being published, patents started being patented, conclaves, conferences, workshops, symposia were being organized, and this is the time where professional associations were emerged. Professional associations, societies, Royal Society of London, and many other societies could emerge, and they were thinking across conducting the science research without harming any other party, protecting all other interests. Some kind of rules were really brought into, a kind of a legality was given to these things. They were brought under certain rules approved by their respective governments. Britain Parliament accepted many acts, many rules, many regulations to prevent unethical practices in the industries and all that. So, this is the real era where some kind of regulations were implemented, as this period involved the transfer of technology. Transfer of technology is not an easy job, it involved many conflicts of interest. Because of these conflicts of interest, there were many tussles. To avoid those tussles, the associations, the societies were formed, and because of that, the scientific publications came into acknowledgement, then the patents, standards all started, they started emerging in the field, and this is one area, this is the period and where the science research really was in need of ethics, because here the ethical practices were not there. They were not there. Because it was not there, there were some kind of unethical practices. To prevent them, all these things happened. Why unethical practices? There must be some reasons. There must be some reasons. There are many factors. Over the years, style and practice of science has seen a radical transformation. You can see, I have quoted many examples of rishis and all that during the Vedic period and all that. Till from that period onwards, kind of a radical transformation has taken place now. Pursuit of science research has moved from an individual's curiosity. Earlier, investigations were being done to satisfy the individual's curiosity. Individual's curiosity, why it is not so, why it is being done. It was done purely for individual curiosity. Now, it is driven into an institutionalized system. It is part of an institution. Science research is part of an institution, from an individual's curiosity driven inquiry to an institutionalized system. Because it is institutionalized, institution has certain obligations to accomplish. In order to accomplish those obligations, it needs to conduct some part of research. Now, take for example the COVID. There is a demand, there is a pressure on the scientists to find vaccine for the COVID-19 as early as possible. As early as possible, it is the demand of the society, it is the demand of the countries, it is the demand of the government and demand of one and all. There is a heavy pressure on them, there is a heavy pressure on them, and it has got a big market. So, that kind of a situation forces them, oh, I should enter the market first, and this is where the competition begins with a subject focus, centralized funding. See, now itself many governments have funded, China has funded, US has funded, European Union has funded, India has funded, Israel has funded. There is a funding, some commercial companies have sponsored the research and all that. With a subject focus, centralized funding and other cadre based career options. If you publish, then you will either publish or perish. Do prove yourself. If you are not proving yourself, then you are not worth. You are not worth, you will not get any opportunities for your career advancements. So, to move into the next ladder, to move into the next career cadre, you have to undertake certain research activities. That is where the problem lies. These things will lead to competitions in both intellectual and personal domains, both intellectual and personal domains. This is where we have to give concentration. Since the pursuit of science has changed from individual curiosity to the institutionalized program, where institution is bound to find solutions to a particular problem in a stipulated time. Since the market is so large, the entire world is looking for a vaccine now. The entire world, and all of them are saying that now we are in stage 2, we are in stage 3. In the stage 3 we have crossed this, we have stage 3 we are crossing this. So, this will put pressure on the other competitors. They will also try to find some solutions, because the first one who will enter into the market have a big opportunity, to prove themselves ethically, socially, financially, and that is the reason it has led to intellectual and personal domains. Competitions will rise. Because of these competitions, I want to find out some ways to achieve that. In finding some ways to achieve that, I normally go for some unethical practices. There are several reasons, not only this, there are several reasons. Many countries are conducting secret experiments on human beings. They are conducting secret experiments on human beings, on different parts of human beings, whether it is genetics, whether that is the Human Genome Project, projects on biological weapons, which is now a hot topic in the mass media, particularly newspapers and television channels and all that. So, the biological weapons have created a havoc and kind of a fear among the society. And another example that I could quote here is the cloning of human embryos and animals, These are some of the selective examples, but there are many investigations which are being conducted on the human objects. Secretly they are being done. When they are being done secretly, kind of a curiosity exists among others. So, what is happening there? Anything may go wrong, anything may come right. So, some kind of towards ethics, we move across kind of a ethics. Then different countries are moving towards wars in different modes. All these days we are hearing this news, that news, war within the water, war outside of the water, in the sky, above the sky, on the surface, in the mountains, different levels, different strategies. Now, war, technology is playing a major role. When technology is playing a major role, technology is nothing but application of a science. There is every chance that they are all being misused. A simple technique, phone, an invention of science. Now there is an uproar in one of the states in the India that the telephones are being tapped for one or the other political reasons. We do not know whether they are true or not, but the science investigation, the science application, the technology is now an allegation on that it is being misused. So, it is not the fault of the science that I am saying, but they are preparing, the countries are getting themselves prepared for different kinds of wars. When they are preparing for different kinds of wars, then the neighboring countries will be under threat and they will try to override those things, and the unethical practices starts. There are reported cases of ethical misconduct. This is a natural one. The third one, the one that I am saying now, reported cases of ethical misconduct, cases of plagiarism, fraud, mismanagement of funds, self citations. These are commonly found now, I am not taking it light, I am taking it very serious, but this is again reported cases of misconduct is being done. That is why there is a necessity to go for ethics, and increasing interdependence of science research with business and industry. Already I have highlighted this point with that of corona, and you take any other disease for that matter, or any other invention for that matter, all technologies, all inventions ultimately will lead to business and industry. Everyone wants to benefit, everyone wants to market the inventions, everyone wants to market the inventions, and financially would like to benefit, financially would like to rule. This kind of a friendship is very dangerous. This kind of a friendship is very dangerous. That is why some ethical practices are required. Developed countries are using poor or underdeveloped countries as guinea pigs for conducting their experiments. With bitter truth I am saying this. The present corona case only, many of the developed countries have chosen, you all know which countries they have chosen for conducting experiments. The countries which were chosen for being conducted experiments, they were the guinea pigs, and they were all poor countries. Of course, they have been given some attractive remunerations, that they will be given free of drugs or drugs at a minimum cost or something like that, but it is an unethical practice. If something goes wrong in that country, who will be responsible? So, choosing guinea pig, someone it should be tested on somebody. Why not on me? Why on others? This kind of a practice certainly will lead to unethical practices, calling for some kind of ethical guidelines. Developments in biological and pharmaceutical sciences have also led to ethical dilemmas, not just human cloning, not just the diseases and all that. You take for example diabetes, you take for example kidney disease, or you take any other disease or any other ailment, one tablet which was considered too good yesterday, tomorrow it will be discarded because it has got something negative, and another drug will come, another drug will enter into the market, they claim that it is best, but after few days there will be some kind of wrongs will be there, and it will be replaced by some other things. So, biological and pharmaceutical science, these are the two areas where lot of tussle is going on between the different competitors, and that is the reason there are ethical dilemmas, whether normal BP is 120/80 or something else, or whether sugar level is less than 100 or more than 100 or 150. We do not know. Sometimes these are increased according to the industrial requirements. So, when this kind of requirements they fluctuate, a layman starts thinking which is the best one, which is the most standard one. New developments like artificial intelligence, machine learning, use of internet also have contributed a lot to these unethical practices. They have also contributed a lot, particularly the artificial intelligence, the machine learning and the internet, and among them I hold internet as the most responsible party for creating this kind of unethical practices, It is not the fault of internet, we are using it, we are misusing it rather. We are misusing it because we want success. We are using shortcuts to achieve our success. We want to achieve success at any cost, at any point of time. We want. There was an example in sports, maybe somewhere in 1980s I think, a test match between New Zealand and Australia was going on. 3 or 4 runs was required by New Zealand team. the then Australian captain Ian Chappell told not to bowl overarm, only ball left, and in cricket underarm bowling was also permitted. He goes to the bowler and says ball underarm. Usually bowlers will go for overarm. Only one ball, last ball, 2 or 3 runs required. When the bowler decides to bowl underarm ball, New Zealand accepts defeat there itself, it will not play. Maybe legally Australia had won that match, but Ian Chappell received heavy criticism from entire world because it was unethical. It was unethical. He went for success. He went ahead with success by hook or crook. That's a sports. The same technology, the same thing, the same kind of a philosophy is applied in science research as well. Some people think that science deals with objectivity. When it deals with objectivity, scientists naturally think why they need ethics. Basically science deals with objectivity, it tries to find solutions, basically it is an objective one. When it is objective, then what is the need for ethical practices? Is there any need? This is the argument of some scientists who does not favor that some kind of ethics should be put on them. They take the shelter under the very definition of science. They take shelter under the very definition of scientists and they argue for ethical practices. The ethics, preaching of ethics is not required. But science cannot be viewed as an anomaly. It cannot be viewed as an anomaly, since they probably result from factors operating within the research and learning environment. Science research also happens within the accepted research methodology. It happens within the environment. When it happens within the research frameworks, it happens within the environment, it is bound by some kind of guiding principles. It is bound by some kind of guiding principles, and the ethical practices are very much essential. In the Indian context, if we look at the ethics, science research ethics, by the fag end of 20th century, we noticed that the quality of research is on a decline. There were some isolated examples of unethical practices in research in the universities and the institutions of national or international repute. Major cause was that very few journals were listed in highly indexed sources, Scopus, Web of Science, at that time current contents, the 1980s, 1990s, it was current contents. Very few journals were listed there. Very few journals were there in major subject databases. That was a serious cause. Very few were there because they were not sure whether the Indian researchers have followed ethical practices or not. That was one of the reasons why these things were not included. So it was seriously took upon somewhere in the fag end of the 20th century, particularly in the last 2 decades, that is in the 21st century. In the last 2 decades, unethical practices of diverse origins were identified. There are certain willful adoption of unethical practices, proven unethical practices, willful adoption of unethical practices, or cases of sheer ignorance, because they do not know anything about it. It is done. They are neglect. They are not aware of it. They are not aware of the law. They are not aware of it. They have committed it. Mistake is a mistake. Mistake is a mistake. But some knowingly, willfully have committed mistakes. It all happened because PhD was made mandatory. earlier only those who were interested in PhD used to do PhDs, or those who were availing some kind of fellowships used to do PhDs. When PhD was made mandatory for some academics, when publishing papers in some journals was made mandatory for calculating the API scores or academic career advancements, somehow, whether interestingly or not interestingly, they want to do PhD, they have to publish papers, otherwise they will perish. And when there is a demand to publish articles, there were quite a few number of journals which were there in the Indian context. Suddenly the predatory journals emerged. Suddenly the predatory journals emerged from nowhere else. One study identifies that there are more than 300 publishers, who are publishing predatory journals in India. Now, thanks to UGC care list, many of them are sleeping. That is a good move which was taken, but because of this, when people are there, there are no many journals, because some journals which were being published in India were either quarterly or 6 monthly or yearly journals. So, number of journals, the frequency of publication was low. So, immediately these people emerged using technology. They all started, they want to have study identified more than 300 or more than that. Because of UGC's initiation, now all such predatory publishers are now taking rest. Another example of this unethical practices in science research is the sexual harassment at workplace, particularly in the laboratories. Many of them were noted, many of them were convicted, some of them again there were no fault, but it was intentional complaint. Such cases were also reported from different parts of the country. So, this is the situation in the India where this unethical practices also are playing some kind of a role. Some of the examples that we would like to quote at the global level is the one that of a Baltimore affair. Baltimore is a Nobel laureate, a great Nobel laureate in genes technology. He, along with 5 other authors, have published a paper in the most reputed journal Cell on 24/4/1986. 5 years later, New York Times makes a report. It makes certain kind of misconduct in the research paper, which was published in the journal Cell, based on a complaint given by a postdoc working in the same university where this work was done. It was a sponsored project by National Institute of Health. It was conducted in the laboratories of Whitehead Institute, and Baltimore was one of the authors who actually did not perform any experiments. He was a mentor. One person who was responsible for conducting this research was a second author. We do not know how other 4 authors have joined. Let us leave them. Let us, NIH, National Institute of Health, which has sponsored the project, Whitehead Institute, known for producing many Nobel laureates, and Nobel laureate Baltimore, their image was the reputation was at stake. It was tarnished. It reached to such an extent that the Congress had to interfere in the affair. It had order for secret services, adopting secret service to find the truth. Secret service, after conducting inquiry for years together, it proved to be inconclusive. They could not find out whether the results are right or wrong. But they could come to a conclusion that data was fabricated or falsified, because no evidences were found, no reports were found, no evidences were found. The investigator who actually did this work was suspended, but after the inquiry was completed, he was taken back. But the problem here is the investigator who complained about this activity, she suffered a lot. Her postdoc was cut short. Within 1 year, her postdoc was cut short. She was sent back. She couldn't find any jobs anymore. That's the reason she had to meet certain congressmen, and that's why the Congress had to interfere. And the Nobel laureate Baltimore had to forego many of his citations, rewards, positions. He resigned from various posts which he was holding, and all other articles which Baltimore had produced came under suspect. Now, this is an episode which throws light on unethical practices in 3 different ways, 4, 5, 6 different ways. One is the authorship. Being an author, how Baltimore could not actually go through the data. Why the investigator who conducted the investigation could not maintain the primary details. How the other 4 were not associated with it still became authors, and in what way the other examiner, other investigator who could replicate the data couldn't find it, who reported the misconduct was put into harassment. So, all these had put forth many questions before the policy makers. She put forth this incident, that is why this is a most significant one. The next example is that of a cloning research. I really sympathize them, Jerry Hall and Robert Stillman plus 3 others. They were over anxious, they were over happy, they were not knowing that it will lead to a major controversy of the century. They wanted that they have invented something miracle and all praise will be there. On the other hand, everything was shattered in a moment. They have presented a paper at American Fertility Society on 13th of October 1993. They claimed that they have cloned human embryos. The moment they said they have cloned, instead of praises, the world over, scientists were blamed for human cloning. It was against culture. How dare are they to clone? All sorts of allegations, and they were put. Literally they were shattered. Many organizations, including the US President, the then US President Clinton, had to apologize and had to say that he condemned the research and banned human cloning at all. He banned human cloning, and he asked the funding agencies to stop funding. It was all due to misunderstanding. In the whole episode of the research, what they could find out was they have come out with a non-viable embryo. So, there was no reason to believe that human cloning will give birth to a new human. It was a non-viable embryo. Later on, February 23rd of 1997, 4 years later, a cloned sheep by name Dolly came into earth, again the same was the result. There were many sharp reactions, but they failed to understand that this kind of a cloning will help in better utilizing it for the society purpose. They all took it in different ways. They all took it in different ways. The third one is most interesting one. This is a debate over cold fusion. It is a story of two electrochemists, Stanley Pons, chairman of the chemistry department of the University of Utah, and Martin Fleischmann, a professor of Southampton University. Usually, any investigations or any results in science are announced normally in conferences, in seminars. There they are announced, or they are announced through journals, scientific journals. Here this was a ulta case. They announced in a press conference which they called on March 23rd, 1989, that they had discovered how to produce fusion at room temperature. How to find fusion at room temperature? Please understand, fusion takes place, it requires huge temperature, heavy, I mean it requires a lot of huge temperature, but they say they could do it at room temperature. It is a general study reported in a press meet rather than in conference of experts without any validation of the data. No scientist later could get the results, but unfortunately or fortunately, Pons and Fleischmann got all appreciations. Oh, they could produce cold fusion at normal temperature. Nobody worried, nobody questioned how it can be produced. They got all appreciations. The result was against the principles of standards of fusion technologies. Nobody noticed it. Only the results were highlighted. The results were highlighted. And again, this is an unethical practice. This is one example where one Indian was involved in the research misconduct. At the University of Michigan, USA, a PhD student, Heather Ramas, struggled hard to replicate the data. One day she used to get results, next day she could not replicate the same results in the same environment, in the same laboratory. She complained to her mentor. Her mentor told that you repeat it in some other laboratory. She repeated the work in her boyfriend's laboratory where she could get the results. They complained it to research ethics committee there. In consultation with mentor and research monitoring committee, concealed camera was set up, and postdoc Vipul Bhrigu was caught in the incident, who was found sabotaging the data. He was pleaded guilty to destruction of data. He was sent back to India. He wanted, his area of interest was also the same. He wanted to prove his data, he wanted to prove his research data first, he wanted to publish it first. So, he wanted to sabotage all other persons. He did use some unethical practices. There are many more examples that we can quote. Tribune India, which reports 2019, not older one, June 19, 2019, just a year back. It says that article published in 2013 in a journal called PLOS, where 3 authors of Punjab University, PhD scholar and 2 professors, it was retracted that it was part of a misconduct as data was fabricated regarding the results. 3 CSIR laboratories have already been implicated for fabricating the data. 130 research papers published from Indian Institute of Toxicology, Lucknow are withdrawn. Of the 130, 40 are written by one gentleman, chief scientist. a senior researcher from IICB has 28 suspected cases. The most recent one is the one that of a IIT Dhanabad director, where his post, he was deprived of the post and he came back. He was accused of certain things and he was proved guilty. And a week back we all have noticed in our Kannada newspapers, Drone Pratap from Mysore, he is known to have developed, he is known to have augmented some resources that he will develop a low cost drone, but till now he is nowhere. Now yesterday's report says that he is now in a COVID care center. We do not know whether he has really done the work or not. So these are all suspected cases, these are all the examples of unethical practices. To combat these unethical practices, various scientific institutions, societies across the globe have framed their own policies on ethics of research. National Science Foundation of United States of America, UNESCO, World Health Organization and many more such organizations have come out with various policy level documents. In the Indian context also, Indian National Science Academy, New Delhi, UGC, ICMR, ICAR, they have framed their own policies and regulations to minimize these unethical practices or to come out, to eradicate these unethical practices. UGC and other apex bodies are encouraging, they are sponsoring workshops and conferences to address ethical issues in sciences. Integrating ethics into the curriculum, science curriculum at the graduate and undergraduate level, at the postgraduate level of instruction is under process. Now already it is integrated into the PhD MPhil coursework by the UGC. There are a number of scholars who have written books and articles on ethics of science research and all that. New journals have been started particularly to promote ethics in research, and they are publishing many competitive and scholastic articles on maintaining these ethical values in science research. So attempts are being done, attempts are being made, regulations are being formed out, policies are being formed out, awareness is being created, the process has started, but still if I take the example of UGC, it has given importance to maintaining research ethics. It had formulated a regulation in 2018 on promotion of academic integrity and prevention of plagiarism in higher educational institutions. It is a regulations and it has made all the universities, central, state and private universities and other institutions which are conducting research have to adopt this regulations in their research program, where they have identified 4 levels of plagiarism, and for at each stage they have come out with different levels of punishments. For a 0 level, that is up to 10% of plagiarism, it is accepted where no penalty is prescribed. Up to 10 to 40%, they will be withdrawing the manuscript. 40 to 60%, one increment is denied, plus they are not allowed to guide for 2 years. Third level, if it is above 60%, denied 2 increments and not allowed to guide for 3 years. So these are the kinds of punishments which have been prescribed for the university level research and all that. In addition to that, to maintain quality journals, to have highly qualitative journals in different subject fields, it has set up a consortium for academic and research ethics, CARE, which was formulated on October 24th, 2018. On the recommendations of that CARE, UGC CARE reference list of quality journals which was made mandatory from 14th June 2019. Only two groups of journals are accepted, group 1 and group 2. Group 1 is the Scopus and Web of Science Index journals, and group 2 is the UGC CARE approved journals. If articles are published only in these, they are approved. To monitor this, they have formulated a cell for journal analysis, Center for Publication Ethics at Savitribai Phule University, Pune. It has recognized 4 CARE universities: Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi for North, Tezpur University for East, MS University, Baroda for West, University Hyderabad for South. Quite recently, again to inculcate into the curriculum of PhD program, they have introduced a 2-credit course on research and publication ethics as a part of PhD or MPhil coursework since August 2019. This has been made mandatory. UGC itself has framed its own syllabus. It has sent it to all the universities to adopt it, and that is the reason the universities are now adopting the syllabi and teaching the paper 2-credit course on research and publication ethics, RPE. This is a good move by the UGC to prevent some kind of, because of non-awareness many unethical practices will be done. So, at least to prevent them, this is one initiation taken by the UGC. In spite of all these things, 3 questions still remain in the mind. What is ethics? What is a science? How these two are interrelated? Still, whatever, because science is an objective one, science is based on empiricism, everything, then why? What is ethics? What is science? How these two are related to each other, Ethics, normal code of conduct, some kind of values. There is a need to distinguish between ethics as a subject matter, and ethics as a field of study. That is the moral philosophy. Ethics as a field of study. Ethics itself is a field of study. We are not entering into the field of study. We are just concentrating on ethics as a subject matter. Ethics are standards of conduct, social norms, that prescribe our behavior. We should be like that. Whenever we see a person, say good morning, good afternoon, how are you? This is a social conduct. It decides our behavior. If I do not say, nothing will go wrong, but I will see that, oh, he does not have some kind of an etiquette, leave it. Standards of conduct do not describe our actual behavior. They are the prescriptive. It says like this, you do this, tell the truth, do not lie. But many times we lie. That means, are we unethical? Depends on the situation, depends on how we are reacting. They are the prescribed ones. We teach our children not to lie. We teach our children to do good, not to do bad. So we teach. They are the prescriptive ones. That is why we call them as standards of conduct do not describe our actual behavior. Ethics is a field of study, is a normative discipline whose main goals are prescriptive and evaluative. Standards of conduct or social norms rather than descriptive and explanatory. Social mores, customs, conventions, like this. So, there are two ways, one is prescriptive way and another one is descriptive way. Prescriptive social norms, descriptive social mores, social customs. One particular custom says like this, you have to do like that means you have to do like that. It is a convention, you must do that means you must do that. prescription, prescriptive and descriptive. So, if we distinguish between these two, then we can really understand, ethics and morality. What is morality? Morality is a society's most general standards. Morality, I should have, he should have, the society should have good moral standards. It can be applied to all, irrespective of their age, sex, creed, caste, profession, institutional goals, anything. Morality, moral values can be applied to all. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, don't harm people. You are a police officer. Some person has violated the COVID norms. During lockdown, he will come out and he will start playing some game, or he will be moving here and there. As a police officer, you will say something, you will say sometimes, you will convince him. If he is not convinced, then only he will do it. Will you not harm him? You are a military officer, you are working on a military field. Will you not harm another person? Or you say, oh, my morality says I will not harm. That is what. Right or wrong, good or bad, virtue or vice, justice or injustice. These are the general standards which are prescribed, and the society is bound. It is a general standard, general framework. Whereas ethics are the standards of a particular profession or occupation. Standards of a particular profession or occupation or institution or group within society. That ethics is related only to that particular area. Now, ethics is specific, whereas morality is generic. Ethics is specific. Professional ethics are standards of conduct that apply to people who occupy a professional occupation or a role. As a teacher, I have my own professional ethics. I am also an administrator. I have a professional role as an administrator. You have different professions. As many professions you have, as many roles you have different levels of ethics to play. You have different roles to play. You have different occupations to play. So, your ethics go on changing. A person who enters a profession acquires ethical obligations to follow professional ethics. He is supposed to follow those professional ethics. He is not supposed to violate those ethics, because he is committed to that profession, because he is in that profession. It is his bounded duty to adhere to those professional ethics. Again, there is differentiation. Differentiation is required between professional ethics and other social, political and religious norms. Social, political, religious norms, they define me somewhere later when I am playing that role, but you need to distinguish them. If we do not distinguish them, if we combine them, then you will enter into some kind of a problem. Do not mix religion with your profession, do not mix your society with the occupation, do not mix your political agenda with your profession. If these things are mixed, then the professional ethics get diluted, and there is every chance that you will lose the professional commitment, you will lose the professional ethics. So, there is a need to differentiate. There is a thin line of difference, that thin line of difference should be there. That thin line of difference should be there. If that thin line does not exist, then naturally we may not follow the ethical principles. That is why I am using the terminology moral relativism. Moral relativism. As long as scientists stay within their professional roles in science, within their professional roles in science do not interact with society at large, if they do not interact with society at large, concerns about moral relativism should not be a major issue. Nobody bothers. If he is well within the framework, if it does not come out and interact with the society at large, nobody bothers, nobody really bothers, and moral relativism is not at all an issue. But scientists often have to interact with society at large. Vexing moral questions arise in science. Many different types of questions will arise in science. They have to find out, several ways, several reasons, and it is these questions that summon the spectre of moral relativism. Moral relativism. We have to, it is not exactly this one, it has to be theory. You have to apply theory of relativity. You have to apply theory of relativity to that morality to suit that particular profession. It can be a real issue for scientists when they decide how to treat human subjects in a different country, how to share intellectual property rights across cultures, whether to conduct research on this topic or not, whether cloning is a cultural issue or a political issue or a regional issue, we do not know what kind of an issue. What about homosexuality? What about many other, there are different questions. That is what I said, vexing questions. We have to face vexing questions. When we have to face vexing questions, we have to find answers to those problems within the framework of our society, within the framework of my profession in which I am working. It is not like that. That is why the terminology moral relativism is used here. That is why the term moral relativism is used here. It is used here to reduce my burden. Otherwise, I will develop a feeling, oh, have I done something wrong? Aborting is required of a pregnant lady. If I do not, if I say, oh, as a human being aborting is not a good thing, let me not. But if I do not do it as a doctor, then I will be doing injustice to my profession, and I will be putting the life of two lives, particularly one life, the mother, at risk, at high risk, and I will be violating that professional ethics. It is my bounded duty to take that kind of a risk, because it is permitted well within my professional ethics, and I must go with that. That is the reason why I am saying moral relativism. Moral relativism. Killing someone is bad, but you are supposed to kill a particular person because that situation needs, either as a police officer or as a military person, you have been given orders, and it is your duty, you must perform it, you must do it. That is where the terminology moral relativism will come. What is science then? It is a systematic study of knowledge. It is a specialized thinking activity, restricted understanding structure and function of nature, structure and function of nature, restricted to understanding the structure and function of nature. It is constrained by research methods and research questions or problems only about natural phenomena. Whatever we have to study well within the framework of research methodology. We have to study well within the research problems. We have to study well within some scope. Then only it is accepted and people will accept it. Research can be done by individuals with freedom to think and decide. This is an ideal activity. Nobody questions whatever research that you want to do. You have all the freedom to do it. You think, go for some kind of vritam, do it, pray for years together, some intuition will come into your mind, come out with some results. It is your duty. But if you are doing it on behalf of a particular institutional framework, most research is carried out now under institutional framework, you are supposed to, bound to complete your work as a group activity. That is why pure science done by individuals is called value free, amoral. Nothing can be said neither moral or nor immoral, neither moral nor immoral. That is why we call it as amoral, but the institutionalized research should be done as a group activity. Institutional goals, careerism then dictate the type of research work undertaken. Goals of an institution, the career advancements will dictate the type of research work undertaken and take away the freedom to think deeper, and it is called a professional research. And it is called a professional research. You are not thinking anything beyond that line. You are now job, all the scientists all over the world who are working in different laboratories, private or public, state funded or whatever, corporate funded, they are all thinking about finding solutions to the virus, that is all. That is all in that matter, because there is hidden institutional goals. We are the first to come out with tablet to vaccine for that particular disease, and with that your careers will advance. Only you have those things in mind, you have to work within those framework, and this is a professional research. That is the difference between individual research and professional research. Much of our research is professional research, and that is why, since it is a professional research, it is bound by some kind of ethics, because now professional research is considered science as a profession. Now you are in a profession, a scientist is considered as a professional, science as a profession, scientist as a professional. Science is a profession in which individuals cooperate together in order to advance human knowledge, eliminate ignorance, solve practical problems. All the three things are there in the present research on COVID. Advance human knowledge, eliminate ignorance. We do not know what coronavirus, what COVID-19 is there, but we have many misconceptions, myths, realities, something like that. It is the bounded duty of a scientist to eliminate our ignorance and solve the practical problem, the problem that we are facing. Asymptomatic, symptomatic and pre-symptomatic. So there are different kinds of patients, and really some people are dying because there is no vaccine for the viral. There is no vaccine for the viral, only for the symptoms that we have. Now it is expected we have to find problem, that is a practical problem. People who occupy the professional role as a scientist should adhere to professional standards as well as general moral ones. A professional standard of conduct can be justified insofar as it enables that profession to provide people with valuable goods and services. Very clear, a professional standard of conduct can be justified insofar as it enables that profession to provide people with valuable goods and services. Hence, professional standards function as quality control mechanism for a profession's goods and services. They act as a quality control mechanism tool. They help maintain the public's trust in the profession. That is why all the health warriors are working. That is why all the health warriors, because public has a trust on that profession, that is the reason they are working on it. That is the reason they will find out some solutions within few days. Moral and legal standards can add and should play a role in guiding professional conduct. I am not denying the fact that moral and legal standards are not required, they are very much essential, but they should guide professional conduct in that particular professional standards, should not require people to violate the law or commonly accepted standards. in order to find some solutions, we are not supposed to violate some intellectual property rights, some other rights or some other laws of some countries. We are not supposed to break them. We have to abide by those things and find solutions to the problem. So, this is where science as a profession implies, and that is the reason we need to have some kind of standards. A scientist who fabricates data, for example, violates ethical and methodological standards in science. Fabrication is falsification. Falsification is nothing but your moral science says do not lie. Fabricating the data, research methodology does not allow it. Research methodology does not allow fabricating the data, does not allow. So, in that way you are violating moral values, you are also violating the methodological standards, both standards you are violating. Science has to defend many of the ethical standards that apply to scientific research. This is a big question. This is a big question. This is the biggest one. It has to defend itself. Science has to defend many of the ethical standards that apply to science research. Particularly the cultural, religious, ethical values are being put forth in medical sciences and other sciences. It is a sin naturally, but in the profession it may not be considered so. On a humor note, if science is merely a storytelling, if it is merely a social construct or merely a story, some kind of a note, why we should care about all these standards? First of all, it is a story. There was a king beyond 7 walls and 7 mountains, 7 hills, 7 lakes, and that there came a peacock. Tell a story. It is kind of a story, but you are not supposed to tell a story. There is no difference between telling a story and defending a hypothesis. Now you have formulated a hypothesis that this is a virus. This virus is changing its structure. This virus attacks the respiratory system. This virus attacks more on those people who have more comorbidity. You have formulated a hypothesis. You have to test those hypotheses and you have to come out with some kind of a solutions. Then you need then why should do these things, right? In order to defend all these things, we will be using some fraudulties, biasness, self deception, or even errors also matter. Errors also matter. The idea that science is a quest for objective knowledge ought to guide our thinking about ethics in science. So, we are guided by this. The idea that science is a quest for objective knowledge ought to guide our thinking about ethics in science, This is where we must give priority for cultivating research ethiks in our habits. There are some accepted standards of ethics in science research. I am put forthing the ones which have been written or which were the messages of Resnick, whose book I have followed. Most probably I have followed his own thoughts of line. Resnick, the references also I have given. He had come out with many standards of ethics in science research. Science ethical standards are based on the goals of the scientific profession, which include quest for knowledge, elimination of ignorance, solution of practical problems. These are the 3 areas where we have to concentrate. That is the reason many of the standards of conduct in science also have a moral foundation. We should not feel that professional ethics, there is no way of morality. morality is a foundation. Morality is a foundation based on which you have to practice within your profession. Ethical standards in science have two conceptual foundations. One is morality and the second one is science. Basically, you are defending the science in the light of morality. You are defending the science in the light of morality. Ethical conduct in science should not violate commonly accepted moral standards, and it should promote the advancement of scientific goals. That should be the aim, that should be the aim of the science research. You can see these are the standards which are put forth by Resnick in four different contexts. In four different contexts: honesty, carefulness, openness, freedom, credit, education, social responsibility, legality, opportunity, mutual respect, efficiency, respect for subject. These are the parameters, these are the standards, these are the standards, and these standards have to be viewed against the right side one, objectivity in research. There should not be any compromise of these points against objectivity. Ethical issues in publication, all these things apply in ethical issues in publication, and all these honesty, carefulness, openness, freedom, credit, education, social responsibility till respect for subject apply to ethical issues in the laboratory, and all these things are applicable scientists in a society. So, these are the standard parameters where these are the four environments. In all these four environments, these standards operate, and I will be touching upon these standards, but I will not discuss them in detail, particularly the objectivity in research and ethical issues in publication. I will be concentrating on the rest of the two, ethical issues in the laboratory, because I am concerned with science research, and I will also be talking to you on scientists in society. So, these are the areas where I will be concentrating more, and these standards also many of the later speakers will talk on this issue. I will just define them, I will make use of these definitions only from my point of view, and I will go to the next level. First we will see the honesty. We should not fabricate, falsify, misrepresent data or results. On the other hand, it is something like this: they should be objective, the data should be objective, unbiased, truthful in all aspects of the research process. This is how you can maintain honesty. You can maintain honesty by not fabricating, not falsifying, not mispresenting the data or not mispresenting the results. The second standard is the carefulness. You need to be very careful, Scientists should avoid errors in research. A minute error cost failure of a space program of Indian Dream space program quite recently. Minute error cost, minute error. So, there is no chance, you need to be very careful, extra careful, should avoid errors in research, especially in presenting the results. Some results can be, at the outset they can seem very well, but if you go deeper into the aspects, they may harm some other things. Initially hydrochloric tablets were used by the Americans to prevent those symptoms, but later they found out that it leads to cardiac arrest, then they stopped using it. They should minimize experimental, methodological and human errors. Three types of errors could be done: experimental, methodological and human errors. These three errors need to be minimized, avoid self-deception, avoid bias and avoid conflicts of interest. Again, conflicts of interest will be dealt by someone else, so I am not going deeper into the aspect. Conflict of interest, there are two, x or y, whether to go for this, whether to go for this. Conflict arises, whom to choose, whom not to choose, how to choose, which one to choose. Ashwathamo hataha. This is the best conflict of interest which we can quote from Mahabharata. Ashwathamo hataha. Now Drona is in confusion whether to continue with the warfield as a Senapati or to go to the help of Ashwathama, whose son. He does not know whether Ashwathama was a name of an elephant or a man. He was under confusion, under conflicts of interest. He withdrew from the warfield and he went to see what happened to his son, and the end result we all know. We need to be extra careful. We need to be openness. Scientists should share data. That does not mean that you share data on a WhatsApp group to everyone. Something may result into it. Someone will misuse it. Data, results, methods, ideas, techniques, tools should be shared with caution, with carefulness. Openness should be viewed with carefulness. Openness should be taken into context. In the context of carefulness, you need to be open. They should allow other scientists to review their work and be open to criticism and new ideas. Just a principle says that you need to share all the data. If you share, certainly somebody will misuse it. That is why I say openness should be viewed along with carefulness. Freedom. You have all the freedom. That does not mean that you can do anything. Scientists should be free to conduct research on any problem or hypothesis. No religion, no culture, no economic factor should bar him. They should be allowed to pursue new ideas and criticize old ones. But not an easy task. People will criticize, and people will not allow for some or the other reasons. Cloning is one subject where there is no much freedom to do it. Nuclear research is one area where freedom is completely restricted, and there are many areas where freedom is restricted, but yes, they should be allowed to do it with minimum restrictions. The next standard of honesty, the next standard of integrity is the credit. You have to credit others where credit is due. Do not give credit where credit is not due. The first or second example that I have said, where Baltimore and 5 other authors were there, I do not know how the 4 authors came into picture, what kind of contributions they had done, where the credit was not done. Something you have to credit a particular person. If I say that it is my own standards, I will be wrong, because I am following the Resnick's module, Resnick's proposal, Resnick's standards which he had proposed. It is his. If I do not credit him, then I will be at wrong. I will be at guilty. It is my bounded duty to remember him, because I am following that, and I am saying credit should be given where credit is due. Education. Scientists should educate prospective scientists and ensure that they learn how to conduct good science research. Scientists should educate and inform the public about science. Biggest gap between the scientists and the society is not, scientists are not in touch with the society. They are not educating, they are not awareing, they are not creating any kind of an awareness. They are not informing the public about righteousness or wrongness. That is where the problems arise. So, it is the bounded duty of a scientist is to educate the future scientists and also the society, making aware of the society. Social responsibility. I have a social responsibility towards my society, because public funded money has come from the society. Scientists should avoid causing harms to society by conducting such experiments. When COVID-19 case began, there was a doubt on a particular scientist. All the media were showing upon particular scientist, that it was that lady who had done all the mistakes and all that. Now it is not coming. I do not know what has happened, but they are responsible. You should not put the society into problem. You should not put the society into problem. You should avoid causing harms to society, and they should attempt to produce social benefits. Social benefits. Atomic energy can be used for all purposes. Use it for peace. Use it for peace. Use it for other purposes. Biological techniques, use it for some good purposes, not for the point of view of wars and winning them. Scientists should be responsible for the consequences of their research. They should be responsible for the consequences of their research. What will happen if something goes wrong? When COVID was on, we had witnessed worst accident in Visakhapatnam where gas got leaked. Gas got leaked and many died. Consequences, they should inform the public about those consequences. If we are not told about the consequences, then naturally they are putting the society into trouble, which is not an accepted one. Legality. Whatever the scientist should do in the process of research, scientists must obey the laws pertaining to their work, country, land. Whether it is intellectual property right or law of customs or law of any other laws, whatever the law the country has or whatever it is the scientist who has to obey those laws. With respect to those laws, the scientist is supposed to undertake particular research. Opportunity. Scientists should not be unfairly denied the opportunity to use scientific resources or advances in the scientific profession. But many of the laboratories are not sharing the equipments. They should not be denied to use the scientific resources. An opportunity should be given to a scientist to make use of that resources properly, so that let him or let her find a solution to the problem. Mutual respect. Scientists should treat colleagues with respect. Oh, that scientist X, what he has done, he has not contributed anything. He is of no use. He has simply done this, that, nothing else. If you say like that, he will also say like that with of your opinion. Same opinion will be there. That is the reason there should be a place for mutual respect. You respect, if you respect that other scientist X, X will respect you. You respect Y, Y will respect you. So, mutual respect has to take place. This is another standard of maintaining ethical practices. Efficiency. We must use the resources efficiently. We will not be using, we are known for using the resources inefficiently. We must use it efficiently. Respect for subjects. Scientists should not violate rights or dignity when using human subjects. When using human subjects in experiments, because it is a human body. It is a human body. We must respect that. We must respect that. Maybe we have all heard, we have seen on the mass media that the funeral process of some COVID deaths were not given importance. They were simply thrown into the pits, and government has warned against those officials, and it has warned that you must respect that subject. You must respect. The person is no more. He has died, but treat that body in a way it is required, in the same way, whenever we are working on human objects, human subjects in experiments, we should treat quite righteously. Scientists should treat non-human animal subjects with appropriate respect and care when using them in experiments. If respect is not there, then the other person may feel bad the way you are tackling the issues. The last 2 points that I said, I will be giving concentration, because they are the areas where science ethics are more. Ethical issues in the laboratories. The first point, ethics of mentor-mentee relationship, is the most wonderful relationship. It is the mentor-mentee relationship that actually gives you results, that gives you rewards, or that takes you to the down. In case of Baltimore, he did not supervise the mentee's work and he landed into problem. And in Ame's case, PhD scholar, where she complained to the mentor that somehow her data is being sabotaged, he supported her, and finally both of them, with the help of research monitoring committee, could find out the culprit. Mentor mentee, mentor should guide the mentee properly, mentor should help, mentor should provide all the necessary help within the legal and ethical framework to the mentee in order to get certain good results, certain results. That is why this kind of a relationship, mentor-mentee, are supposed to spend more number of hours in a laboratory environment, and that is the reason, I mean, there is no timing, nothing else. So that is the reason I say that they should maintain a very good human relations with each other, and they should support each other, and it is the mentor to always defend a mentee. Mentee should get support from the mentor, and we have seen many of the harassment at workplace cases because of the faulty or unfaulty responses from both the ends, and it is an unethical practice. That is what I would like to say. Harassment is the second one. Anyway, there should not be a place for harassment. It should not be a place for harassment. We must report the misconduct whenever it is reported, whenever we notice it, whether it is in my lab or in some other's lab. But that lady got into problem who reported the case in Baltimore affair. Investigator, a postdoc investigator who reported the misconduct, that this result I am unable to replicate, she got into problem. Not that kind of a thing. Reporting misconduct should be done whenever an article has come for a review. You should not blindly just review and say yes, it is done. If you do some kind of a false, then you will get into problem. Misconduct, if noticed, should be reported. Teaching versus research, there is a big difference. Teaching is a mere hypothetical situation. Research is an actual practice. Where you are really doing certain things. In the WTO, World Trade Organization, it was taken to ground zero level. A student asked a question to one of the teachers that how much aeroplane fuel is required to bring WTC to the downer, to ground zero. I do not know whether teacher has given answer or not, but safely that student had used 2 aeroplanes to bring that WTC to the down, to the ground zero. We must be careful, we must analyze, we must be careful in teaching and how it is practically implemented at the research level. So, this is the one area which we are supposed not to neglect it. Hiring and recruitment, we should have certain policies. What kind of people I should hire, how I should recruit, what kind of people I should recruit, how I have to use their services. So, all these come within the laboratory framework, and if I do not have, if I do not follow a kind of a ethical principles, then I may go wrong. Sharing and preserving resources, it is very much essential. It is my bounded duty as an investigator that I must share my resources to others, and I must preserve the resources for later verification. I must be very careful when I am conducting research on human subjects or animal subjects. UGC had already issued certain guidelines on conducting research on human subjects and animal subjects. how practicals need to be conducted in the absence of animal subjects, and what are the basic requirements. Even ICMR has come out with many guidelines over these issues. So, these need to be followed properly to maintain some ethical practices in the laboratory. After all, scientists exist for a society. Scientists exist for a society. He is completely responsible for the society's welfare. If he cannot do good to the society, he should not do bad to the society. At least he should tell us the realities, what may happen, how it may happen, what are the things that may go wrong if something goes like or something goes wrong like that. There are many projects which are halfway, have been stopped by the intervention of some environmental organizations or committees or interventions, but at the fag end it is for the benefit of the society. How it is not helping the society, what are the dangers that it may have. So, he is entirely responsible, he should tell us, because it is he who is conducting the research. That is where those people who have cloned the human cloning, who have done the human cloning in the beginning, were blamed because they could not convince the world that it was a non-viable cloning, it was a non-viable cloned human object, and whole world fell beyond them. So, it is the responsibility, it becomes the responsibility to tell the people what exactly is right or wrong. Scientists many times are required to produce expert testimony in courts. They are supposed to, in the case of defense or in the case of medical sciences or even in engineering and technology, where buildings have collapsed the moment they are constructed, they are supposed to give their testimony before the court of law. It is their responsibility, and they are supposed to adhere to those responsibilities properly. They have to act as experts. Industrial science is the one which is known for market, known for profit making, known for marketing, known for competitive, cutthroat competition and all that. Within the industrial practices, within the industrial science, there is a chance of maintaining morality, there is a chance, there is an opportunity for maintaining ethics and still be a brand, So, this is one way how a scientist has to function in an industrial science. Military science is totally a different one. There is a saying that loose lips sink ships. Here you are not supposed to say anything at all, you are supposed to keep everything confidential. If you say something, then you will get into problem. You must understand as a military science how important the data is. Pokhran 2, when Pokhran 2 was done, nobody was knowing except the Prime Minister, the science advisor and the person who performed it, because the name that was given to it was Buddha Smiles. So, there is a need for confidentiality, there is a need. Scientist has to behave in a different way in military science. He has to, because he is working in a military science environment, and now I am saying social responsibility, but he is working in a military. Now we are putting some confusing environment with him, but he is working in a military environment. He is supposed to follow the rules of a military science, what the military orders say, that he should obey. Public funding of research. Scientist is using the public money. Gandhi had said that public money is accountable. Public money, whatever public money is accountable. He used to keep record of every paisa spent. That should be a motive, that should be his Gandhi's motivation, should be our motivation also. We should keep, that is accountable, we should not misuse, we should try to get it in a righteous way, we should spend it judiciously, and we should stand as a model. There are many other social ethics, political ethics, moral ethics to be followed in general principles. As a person belonging to the society, these are all my responsibility as a scientist to follow them. These are the standards which were prescribed by Resnick, which I am placing before you for a discussion and all that. To conclude my discussion, there is no rational scientific basis of ethics. There is an ethical basis of science on the other hand. There is an ethical basis of science, but no rational scientific basis of ethics. This is what we have to understand. We have to initiate awareness in the scientific fraternity, especially the younger colleagues, and ignite a debate in the community on research ethics culture. We have to communicate ethical practices in education, teaching, outreach and governance of science. This is most essentially required one. Communicating ethical practices in education, teaching, outreach and governance of science. Our mantra should be live and let live. It is the only answer to all these perplexing problems of existence, and a very thin line between need, greed and prosperity and propriety exists. There is a thin line, need, greed. The moment what is my need, what is the greed and what is the proprietary. There is a thin line. If we understand, then we are following the ethical principles. If we are not understanding, then still we support the unethical causes. These are the major references which I have gone through, particularly the Resnick 1998, the E version 2005 and the second one Muralidhar K, Ghosh, Amit and Singhvi AK edited book released by Indian National Science Academy. These are the two references which I have profusely made use of, along with the two other Shanmukhani and Tripathi's ethics in clinical research and O.P. Sharma's ethics in science. These are the sources that I have consulted for my discussion over here, and I am always available on my mail ID pgtadisad@gmail.com. I take this opportunity to thank the organizers, my fellow colleagues, Dr. T. Shanta Devi, Chairperson of the Department of Library and Information Science, and Dr. A. Gavisiddappa, Associate Professor in the department and Librarian in charge, who is also the co-organizer of this national webinar. And I thank both of them, and I also thank the administrative authorities for giving me an opportunity to deliver a talk on ethics of science research to the participants. Hope I have communicated the ideas to you. If there are any queries, I am most welcome on this mail ID pgtadisad@gmail.com. Thank you one and all.